Hello and welcome to a layout comparison featuring the Night Road. Quick recap if you haven't seen everything I put out there so far. Out of the box it was a marble, resetting the surface made it a beast. Now I've drilled a second one with a different layout. We're taking a look at the first one here post surface reset. No idea what the bork was wrong with it out of the box, but that's old news now. We made the adjustment, it looks great, moving on. REX is a really strong cover, the core in the high road isn't that strong, and the thought was suggested that with my typical 4x2 layout, sure it drops the RG a little, but it still leaves it really high, and it makes the already high differential even higher. Theoretically, I'm almost taking the existing cover core mismatch and exaggerating it. It already flares a ton at 046, that increases with a pin-up layout, 4-inch pin is very strong without being crazy, and we've talked about this in a previous video, but flare works both ways. More ring separation, more fresh cover exposed to the lane on every rotation, more traction, more digs, so bigger layouts get the cover involved more. Again, the core is the engine and the cover is the tires, same concept. However, the cover on this ball doesn't really need to be more involved than it already is. Basically with this ball we have a lot of torque without a ton of horsepower and huge tires, and rather than try to juice the engine or milk any more out of it, I thought I might actually pull it back a little and work with the horsepower it has to offer. Still wanted to go pin up because that RG is high enough. I don't want it any higher, but I want to control the flare and the roll a little more, and you can see this thing now wants to dig and go and I like it, but I want a delta off of this. I settled on 5x2 with the idea to get a little more length, a little more shape, and just let it be a high road. Again, the cover already wants to go when the core isn't ready sometimes, and the layout just exaggerates that. And with the new layout, the idea is to work a little more with what the core already wants to do, let it be longer and sharper because the strength of the cover is going to provide the traction and blend. I don't like going weaker on the Pearl or the original because the cover strength isn't there. Both the core and the cover on those want to be longer and sharper, so the 4x2 works on those because the balance is already there, and I want to get more out of those covers. This one is still effective at 4x2, but obviously has a lane that it wants to stay in. Okay, so now that you have zero idea what I just said, here's the 5x2, and here's what all that nonsense I just said looks like. Again, if you don't understand the tech, Storm's Pin Buffer Layout System Trilogy is incredible at explaining and illustrating it all. You can find those on the YouTubes. The weaker pin puts the core a little more up and down, so there's not quite as much imbalance. Going pin up still drops the RG a little and raises the differential, but the weaker pin makes the ball want to go longer, makes it a little firmer down lane, and theoretically makes it a little less continuous, but beyond 5 inches is where the ball wants to start losing axis rotation and straightening out a little. We're not quite to that point, so the ball is still fairly continuous. The ball reaction looks a little sexier. People love seeing a ball go forever and then turn sideways, but it's not always practical. While the 4x2 was a little too slow down lane, sometimes resulting in some flat hits, the 5x2 can be a little too long and behind it, or a little too jumpy. This is why I generally prefer the 4-inch pins on my symmetric stuff. With the 4x2, I was just moving around to show what it looked like from the different zones. Obviously, the lanes weren't ready for me to get deeper. 4-inch pin-up symmetrics aren't exactly the thought to cover boards on a house shot, and I'm not going to be playing inside third arrow on the left side much anyway, just not a good idea. The quicker friction response of this one puts me inside, but it's better at getting back from deep than the 4x2. Little weaker on the pin makes it want to go longer. That delays the hook or the ball motion a little and puts it closer to the pins, which is where we want it from these angles. 4x2 is better for a stronger mid lane read and more back end control. 5x2 is better for chasing it in. The 5x2 lets me roll the ball a little more because it wants to go longer, but it's also punchier down lane, so it's a little too quick from straight, but it gets back from angle easier. The 4x2 controls the mids better and gives me more blend to keep my angles straighter, but it resists angle a little more. Bit shorter of a video here, but this one isn't too complicated. I say that now. Realistically, there's not a huge difference in these layouts, but you can see the different nuances and the difference in what the balls want to do. You can see here too that you still have to understand this stuff and what you're doing. If you go with a 4-inch pin on a ball because it makes it stronger, and you think strong means more dynamic or more motion on the back end rather than earlier and slower, and then try to play deep with it, you're going to be frustrated. I'd stay further to the left with the 4x2 and move in with the 5x2, and that'd keep me in the same ball with the same general motion, just geared for that specific zone on the lane. Big shout out and thanks to my Patreon members and great Discord community. Thank you for watching, and may the strikes be with you.